Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So in this video I'd like to show my Paladin Healer build for module 27. This build has two variants. One for support with your debuffs where you can increase the party's damage by a little bit more. It will still get you for 90% stats on all of what is necessary. Power, crit strike, crit severity, and outgoing healing. And there is also another build which is for maximum shields. The main difference is your item level goes up and you get some bonuses that just increase your outgoing healing further over the cap. Like this set giving you 7%, this ring giving 7% to your multi-target heals, and this other ring giving 8% to your single target heals. And on top of that, some weapons giving even more total healing, doubled in the new trial in the new zone. So this is what you'd use again for maximum shields. Still getting all those green 90% as with the support build. Main difference again is item level and those overheal bonuses. You can see it's quite significant. So it'll depend what you'll want to go for. If you're not as confident at healing, want to make sure everybody's getting the maximum amount of support as possible, then by all means go with the max shield setup, using all these bonuses to increase your healing further than what you can get from just stats. There'll be timestamps on the play bar below where you can skip to any section you're most interested in. So first of all, we go to our powers. With module 27, there was some updates, and most of them just for the better, increasing the amount you're going to heal for. Shields will remain about the same, maybe a 10 to 15% increase from what you may have had before, but that's about it. But overall, what will really help newer players is that the base healing has gone up significantly by over 50%. There is also a new power, Bond of Virtue, was reworked, so it will now actually heal people. This can be a useful ability to just top up people. It will heal everybody within this area for 300 magnitude, and the person who is most injured within 80 feet of you will get an additional heal, like you saw that person get over there. Don't be afraid to use this power if you need the extra healing. I just generally have not found it overly necessary. So our at-wills remain the same, using Cure Wounds and Divine Fulmination. If you do want to make full advantage of your companion enhancement right here, triggering it to support the team with whatever ones your team chooses you to use, then you're better off using Valorous Strike, because you'll get that much higher uptime of hits per second. But as for your encounters, your main heal ability will be like Divine Shelter here. You'll give everybody a decent sized shield, and if you don't critically hit, it'll be a bit smaller. But they have changed the ability now that a smaller shield will not replace a bigger shield. So anytime you put a bigger shield on people, it will not go away until they lose a bit of that shield and you put a bigger one on. Or it just drops off and then you can place a new shield. I mainly use Divine Shelter. It's nice and easy with range 80 feet and it generally does the job. Its heal nearly got doubled there. But you can still use Divine Touch, and I have used it in the past. You just need to be careful with your aiming. You want to hit only like 1 or 2 players at most, and you can give them a massive fat shield. It's awesome. It's just you need to be careful on who you shield. You don't want to aim on like 4 people, because then you're just better off having used Divine Shelter. Even 3 people are better off just using Divine Shelter. You just use Divine Touch to heal 1 or 2 people. So if a fight is where everybody's spread out, then that is useful. If they're not, then just Divine Shelter is far more reliable. And then our other 2 encounter powers is generally Sacred Weapon and Circle of Divinity. Again, if Circle of Divinity is not going to work for you because you're running around all the time and you can't stand in this circle, do not be afraid to just use a backup heal power of Bond of Virtue. This again will heal like I said before, just help you top them up. Be aware you do have some stun abilities like Burning Light, 3-second stun, Banishment, 6-second stun. Make sure to use these when you're fighting groups of enemies that can be stunned. If it's just beating up a group, going out of combat, going to the next group, then you don't need the divinity regen, so that becomes kind of pointless. Just use the stun. Enemies that are stunned can't deal damage, so less healing you'll need to do. For the daily powers, Sanctuary has been increased to now have 15% damage resistance. You will be properly control immune to most effects, as there are some boss mechanics who you'll still get knocked around. That's intended. And then lay on hands for your backup oh shit, the guy immediately needs a heal and potentially a cleanse. This will remove negative effects as well. If everybody's running around a lot, you might be better off using Shield of Faith instead of Sanctuary. Just haven't found it overly necessary. Sanctuary is great because you don't even have to sit there. Be aware that when you're casting it, you have to channel it like this. You can't use any other abilities, but you can use it just once. Pop it up and then it goes away, and you will heal everybody immediately for that 600 magnitude. Can help to just top off people if you really need. Otherwise, sitting there channeling it will give a lot of heals because it's now 2 seconds per time it heals rather than 3 seconds it was before. So it should heal through most of the damage over time, like mechanics we see. For the mechanics, you just have your block. You can block some incoming damage up to 40% of your maximum hit points. Not that great. It will give you some control immunity as well. You're mainly gonna just have to use your legs to get out of red areas, and that'll be what you'll want to do for the most part. Don't try tank much because your hit points will just vanish really quick. You don't have the defense stats to back it up. Keep in mind, this block animation can also be used very well with this set. So what you'll want to do is go to cast your power and immediately press block. That way you don't actually cast the power, but you gain one of these stacks, which lasts 10 seconds. Astral Absorption, which gives you those stats. So you want to make sure you're casting an encounter power every 10 seconds to maintain 7 of these stacks if you're using this set. And if you don't want to cast an encounter power, you need to save them. Just animation cancel one of them, like your Divine Shelter. You go to cast it and immediately block, and you don't actually cast it. Your tab ability here, it has the effect where you can place an aura of divinity, this mark on somebody, and when they have this mark, they will be the target of your power, which is your Hand of Divinity. It's got a massive heal, 1200, and will place barriers equal to that heal. So this is just huge. Like, we can place it on ourselves by looking in the sky, and then when we channel this, you can see we can give ourselves a shield equal to more than our hit points. Yeah, and that's more than a 1.2 million hit point shield. It's just huge. Also because Aura of Restoration got increased to give an additional 5% when that person has the mark above them. You're going to want to use this in combination of like Prayer of Opportunity. You're going to get a free cast, because now when you do go and cast this, you're not going to replace it with any of your other powers, which would give a less shield. So like Divine Shelter will not replace it. So now we can really make much more use of Prayer of Opportunity. When this does trigger, you will see when you're healing that it will become a dotted outline on that Hand of Divinity. You will see that just there. And then the next time you go cast this Hand of Divinity, it doesn't cost you any divinity. Can be very useful. If you're in fights though that you're not really using this at all, the tank doesn't need the extra protection, don't be afraid to switch to battle focus and gain that little bit of extra divinity over time. So we go to our class features. Here we generally run Composure and 1 Aura. We can only run 1 Aura, so Aura Restoration it is. If your team wants Aura of Wrath, there is the option there. Usually if you want to go maximum shields, Aura Restoration is the way to go. The rest just aren't really great. I wouldn't use them. For your feats, you may note we are using Sheltered Healing instead of Critical Touch. This is because the new way the shields work. A smaller shield will not replace a bigger shield. So you can just cast like Divine Shelter twice and you're pretty much guaranteed that everybody has a critical shield because it's not going to get replaced. So there's 0 point in having Critical Touch anymore. So you use Divine Shelter and they still need a bit of a top up. They miss a bit of hit points. Then you can use Cure Wounds and it will have the enhanced magnitude of 425. Very nice. Again, like we said, Prayer of Opportunity, very useful for giving the free cast of Hand of Divinity. If you're not using Hand of Divinity much, don't be afraid to get extra divinity regen from Battle Focus. You want Enduring Spirit for your Sacred Weapon, 100%, and you want Divine Intervention for your Lay of Hands. Very good. You can use Convalescence. There's situational uses for it. I just haven't found it necessary in any of the playtime I've done with Paladin. And a Mystery of Warding, of course, for extra shield size. So that's it for our powers. Now we move to our stats. As a healer, you want to be focusing on these 4 green stats: power, outgoing healing, critical severity, and critical strike. In that order is generally what you want to focus on. From there, it's getting item level to get this damage, which does affect healing. And then you do have bonuses which give like total healing. So this ring this ring as well, this set, and these weapons, all total healing. They won't show as like your outgoing healing stat, but they will add to it and go above the 90% cap. So they're very useful. Just be aware on which bonuses are out there, and which ones actually work or not. I've tested all of these and they do give total healing, and they do seem to increase our shields and our heals. So then we go to our race and ability scores. For my Paladin Healer, I generally go with Aasimar. However, on my tank side, I have switched over to using the Menzoberranzan Renegade for its Fairy Fire. If you do that instead of, let's say, Aasimar for this build, you're going to miss probably about 2% outgoing healing. You should still be able to make up the power. But if you want to main healer, I still recommend Aasimar if you want to be maximizing everything. If you just want to support the team, then it's Drow or Menzoberranzan Renegade. So for the max shields, totally Aasimar. You're also giving everybody some more hit points with the effect here of Celestial Presence. So they're giving them extra survivability. For the ability scores, we're just going with Dex and Wisdom. If you don't need any more Dex or Wisdom like we do here, we're switching to Charisma and like Constitution. Again, we already have those 90% stats, so there wasn't much point in having any more Wisdom or Dexterity. So now we move to our gear, and again, it's slightly different depending on what loadout you want to go with. For the maximum shields, it's all this stuff. This headpiece comes from Master Templar the Spider. Still recommend going for it. There are new boots you can get instead of these boots, but there's no real then headpiece to use instead that would give as much stats as these. Those boots would come from the new trial, giving you the 20% regen exactly like the helmet. The legendary helmet will stack with the mythic boots, but I don't really think that's necessary. You don't need that. This armor from Master Demon Web Pits dungeon. These arms from the new Master Trial for just the maximum divinity. You get that up to 1,250. And then these boots from your Demon Web Pits campaign. You will have to do a bit of advanced Demon Web Pits or the Master one to be able to buy them from the store over here. The weapons are from the new trial, the master version. You can get the weapons from the advanced version. They'll be okay as well. They'll just miss the 250 damage, which will increase your healing. Again, on the support builds for the weapons, you'll want to use like Masterwork ones. So these Duergar ones are the latest ones with the highest item level and the plus 200 damage. They are the best to go for. But if they're too expensive for you, you can totally use on team support the Feywood ones or the Mastered ones. Check for yourself. They'll give at 2% damage, outgoing healing, and damage resistance to your team. Very good for the support. Then for the neck and the waist piece here with the artifact set, we're going with the portable Spelljammer detector artifact and the set that goes with it. The detector's choker and the detector's sash comes from the new master and advanced version of the new trial, the Defense of the Moon Dancer. So it's relatively easy to obtain. But on the support build, I highly recommend going with the Vistani sash, and you'll want to use the at-will Divine Fulmination to trigger it, as it's considered an AoE effect. So you'll use it in boss fights, and you'll use that in combination with the Illustrious Grace Ring to give also a debuff to the enemy stats, increasing your allies' damage against them. And on this build, we'd use a legendary ring from the new trial as well to give us the outgoing healing. And on the max shields build, we're going to use the opal ring from the Master Demon Web Pits dungeon just to increase our multi-target heals. That will increase our divine shelter, the shield size for everybody, and then the single target heal ring with the 8% to increase the effectiveness of our Hand of Divinity. And also, I guess, our Cure Wounds, it will increase that too. And then for the shirt, that's again from the new trial. You can get the outgoing healing ones here. You can get them for Seals of the Spider. You can also get them from Heroic Encounters in the Demon Web Pits zone. Ultimately, that is it for gear. Again, you can see the variations there. And so we move to our enchantments. This is my setup. Your defense enchants don't really matter, but ideally you'd have like garnets for defense. Now in offense here, we have a garnet, a jade, and 2 cobalts. And I believe with the support build, we just have 3 garnets and 1 jade. In utility, it's the same. You have a jade, And then you have in the combat enchantment, the mythic refulgent fortification. Yes, this got fixed. It's really good now. You use like a cure wounds on somebody, they gain the damage resistance and the movement speed. Or you use your tab ability to shield the tank and they'll gain the damage resistance and the movement speed. So you'll want to time it. It only lasts 4 seconds though. So if they're going to take a tank buster, try and want to give them this shield like 4 seconds or less towards when they're actually going to get hit, so they gain the benefit from it. An alternative is, yes, like the lightning flash. For the bonus here, we have recharge speed, but if you need the movement speed to get out of red zones, don't be afraid to use that. We have Devil's Precision just for the 5% crit strike, and that's it. You could run with a Corrupt Black Ice one here, or you could run with a White Dragon Glyph. You can look those up. They'll just give a little bit of extra healing to your abilities, just not actually contributing to your shields at all. With the artifacts, we just have high item level ones, 1500. We've got like the portable detector here, the new Astral Seed, Marilith Mask, and like the Mystic Bolt. Doesn't really matter, guys. Don't worry about getting like the maximum item level ones. If you have older ones, which are like 1200, they'll do okay as well. Then we go to our companions. This is what I'm running with. Active companion, Portobello from the events. There are other alternatives, like these top 6 support ones here, 7, 8, depending on the group, you'll want to use one of those, at least in endgame. For the companion equipment, we just have ones here with outgoing healing, and this is a one from the North Dark Reaches with critical strike and outgoing healing, but you can get new ones from the latest campaign, Light of Xeraxis, and here I recommend getting the crit strike and outgoing healing ones, a little bit more item level. Then for our companion enhancement, you'll want one that'll support the team. This is a list of them here, and then you also have advantage nullification from Portobello, which will reduce the enemy's awareness, increasing everybody's survivability. Just again, you can't really trigger it that reliably, so I wouldn't put a very important one on yourself. For the other abilities, we have Dredged, crit strike and crit severity, Raptor for the power, Zariel for crit strike, crit severity, the dog, crit severity power, and then the golden bullet for outgoing healing. You can mix and match different ones to give you very similar effects. Like you could have the wolf with the 7% critical severity. Then you could have your black dragon ion stone or your gromp for the 7% critical strike, rather than having like Zariel and Dredged. You can see a list of different ones you can use right here. And so we move to our mounts. On the current tab, you want to use one to support the team. So we have the Eclipse line right here, right now, but you can use the top ones from this list as well. For the equip bonus, we want to run an aura. So we've got like Mystic Aura here. We've got somebody else in the team who's running Runic Aura. And then there's also like Pack Tactics to give awareness and combat advantage. In the stable, this is what we have. 2 Tacticians, 2 Shepherd's Devotion, and a Mender's Covenant. Doesn't matter so much here. I wouldn't worry about it. You can run some Gladiator's Guile if you want some movement speed. I like Shepherds to give everybody movement speed and yourself when you use a daily. Tacticians is great when you use a daily. You reduce your cooldowns, so just try and make sure you have cast those powers before you use it daily if you need the divinity, and then you'll cut their cooldowns by like 7.5 seconds when you use 2 of them, which is nice. And the insignias themselves, it's just dominance and aggression, and I believe we have some brutality as well, and then we have like 1 rhythm. For the colors, the only important one is outgoing healing and critical severity. That's it. Don't worry too much about getting them to mythic, it's not that important. From there we go to our consumables and buffs. Well, what I'm using is Flask of Potency, Squash Soup, Zurek for the outgoing healing. You can get different ones with the same stats from Demon Web Pit Zone, and then Wildstorm Elixir. For the belt items, we've got a Stone of Health. For the Clutch Instant Heal to Full, we've got a Wondrous Dragon with 3% action points. Alternatively, if you have, you could use a Alliance Battle Horn for a bit of action points quickly when you need. And then we have the Forger's Box for the power. Now, in order to get all these 90%, you will have to rely a little bit on your team. And what we're gaining from our team is here. So we have 4 raptors, so we're in a group where everybody is using the tamed velociraptor. That gives us 18.75% power. It's massive and helps a ton for these endgame builds. We also have D&D in Session, which comes from this guy, Portobello, 3.5% power. We get Aura of Wrath from the Paladin tank in our group. That gives us a total of 4%. However, you can get lucky and get 2% from the Forger's box, and then you don't need that at all because we're only really using 2%. And additionally, when you get stacks, if you're using this set, you gain Forte, which does give you critical strike. We also have then Runic Aura here, and then I'm also having Mystic Aura, and so we get the power capped. And other than that, just make sure that you're not that close to the team. Like if I'm close to everybody, we lose 5% power. And this is because this shirt. If one person is further than 30 feet away, we gain the power. You can see that there. So you can see the distance by basically Bane. The full diameter of Bane is 30 feet. So as long as we have one teammate that's further than 30 feet, we gain that Herald's Decree bonus, which gives us 5% power. So you just want to be this distance from like one of your teammates and you gain that, and that gives us all we need. And so ultimately that is the entirety of my build for module 27. Two variants again, one with the maximum shields and all the bonuses to go over the maximum of your stats, and then one just for supporting the team with all the debuffs. You got the weapons there, Vistani set, and the Grace Ring. You are missing a bit of shields, especially with the item level. So if your team needs maximum survivability, not ideal. But you're getting the most you can get from your stats with this as well, getting them all at 90%. So hopefully this is somewhat insightful to you guys. Again, keep in mind how the shield interaction works. Be careful of your shields dropping off because you're not able to replace them with a smaller shield anymore. So your shields could very well expire just before you need them if they didn't take any damage, which reduced the size of the shield, so you couldn't replace it. For example, you give somebody a shield, 20 seconds pass, they drop off, and then bam, they get hit by something where they really needed the shield, but they didn't have it because it just expired and you weren't there to give them back the shield instantly. And no matter how many times you casted shields, you weren't replacing what they had because it was always like a teeny bit smaller than what you gave them while you were buffed up or something. So you need to be careful. With that said, a massive thank you again to all of these channel members for their added support, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.